we're going to think about John chapter 10. So if you've got a Bible, you want to turn to that. So we've been thinking about pictures of the church. We're on number 7, if you're keeping count. And we've been thinking about being the body of Christ and family of God, etc. And there's 2 or 3 more to go. We're going to be finishing the week before Palm Sunday, which is sooner than you think. It's not very far away at all. And then in advance, a bit of advertisement. After Easter time, we're going to be thinking about the life of Elijah. Sorry, got my Old Testament prophets mixed up. Elijah, and the Bible says Elijah was someone who was just like us, which is a funny thing. And when you read his story, you think, my goodness, he's nothing like me at all. But he did some really amazing, wacky way out things, and he did some things that make you think, oh gosh, he was human and did feel and struggle. So we're going to be using the life of Elijah over several weeks to think about how we live life in the real world, and thinking about several things that will help us in our everyday life. So we'll get to that. Some reason I've marked Ephesians 5 in my Bible, but I think that we'll get to that in a week or two. Here it is. So John chapter 10. Jesus said, I tell you the truth, anyone who sneaks over the wall of a sheepfold rather than going through the gate may surely be a thief and a robber. But the one who enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep recognize his voice and come to him. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. After he's gathered his own flock, he walks ahead of them, and they follow him because they know his voice. They won't follow a stranger. They will run from him because they don't know his voice. Those who heard Jesus use this illustration didn't understand what he meant. So he explained it to them. I tell you the truth. I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me were thieves and robbers, but the true sheep did not listen to them. Yes, I am the gate. Those who come in through me will be saved. They will come and go freely and find good pasture. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. A hired hand will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him and he isn't their shepherd. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. The hired hand runs away because he's working only for the money and doesn't really care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep and they know me. Just as my Father knows me and I know the Father, so I sacrifice my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheepfold. I must bring them also. They will listen to my voice, and there will be one flock with one shepherd. The Father loves me because I sacrifice my life, so I may take it back again. No one can take my life from me. I sacrifice it voluntarily, for I have the authority to lay it down again when I want to, and also to take it up again. For this is what my Father has commanded. When he said these things, the people were again divided in their opinions about him. Some said, he's demon-possessed and out of his mind. Why would we listen to a man like that? And others said, this doesn't sound like a man possessed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? There we go. People discussing and debating who they think Jesus is, and it still goes on today. But we've come to believe that he is the good shepherd, the one that offers us life. Jesus said, my sheep know my voice. My sheep know my voice. And for me, someone said to me recently, why do you believe in Jesus? Why? And I think they were expecting a very scientific, technical answer and references to Roman documents and all that kind of stuff you can do. And I just said, because he's so real in my life. So real in my life. And I think if I was suddenly time walked back to the 1990s, I would probably do the whole, I'm going to prove it to you objectively. But I just don't think that's the world we live in anymore. I think the world has shifted. Some people want that, obviously, and we can do that. But I think people are just looking for what's real. How does that work for you? That's what people are interested in. The way he's been involved in my life over the years, the way he's been me through thick and thin, the way he's led me at times, the way when I felt like giving up, when I just thought, I can't cope with this, the strength he's given me to know Jesus with me. Jesus is with us in the everyday. And as I said, we'll think more about that after Easter. And I don't know if you've ever heard someone say something about someone else that didn't sound right. You know, someone might say to you after church, Graeme really hates you. I don't know, how would you feel about that? Perhaps you think, oh, yeah, sounds right to me. But I hope you would think, you know, it doesn't sound like Graeme, does it? And I think part of the trouble, and the Bible speaks a lot about gossip, and it makes me interested because churches obsess over some sins more than others. And actually the Bible speaks about gossip as a sin, and gossip is ripe in many churches. And it always begins with someone saying something about someone else. And if more people could say, gee, it doesn't sound right, then it would be nipped in the bud much more quicker. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't sound like something they would have done or said. And actually, as all this stuff goes on, and so often you know someone by their character, don't you? Is that something they would do? Is that something we would say? And I'll just share that, because I think that's quite helpful when Jesus said, they know my voice. And actually, I've got no idea what Jesus' voice sounds like out loud. Does that make sense? But I know his character, I know who he is, I know the sort of things he says, and I've learned that over time. So how do we recognise a voice when we hear it? Well, of course, you get people you share life with. This is Tracy and I on our 25th wedding anniversary, and we climbed a hill in the rain. That's what we do to celebrate life, and look how happy we are. And that was about, I don't know, that was about mile 6 in a 82-mile walk. It probably wasn't that far, was it? That's when we went away to that. That was the day we went to that camp, something or other, and then went back. It was quite a long way, wasn't it? She's nodding at me. It was longer than I thought it was going to be, if I'm completely honest. But we were smiling. I think this was quite near the beginning of the day. Or perhaps, anyway, it doesn't matter. But we know each other. Oh, she's just like, just get on with it, man. But we know each other. We know what each other sounds like. We know a lot about each other. But here we are, more than 25 years on in marriage, still getting to know each other. That makes sense. We grow in relationships. And that's quite helpful again as we think about Jesus. And I've been following Jesus for a number of years, but I'm still getting to know him. I'm still learning new things about him. Sometimes it's to do with the people who fed us, who cared for us, the people who genuinely look after us. We recognise them. We learn to trust in them, don't we? Because they look after us and they provide us. I realise not every family is idyllic as this family here. I realise sometimes families go wrong. But I'm talking about people who genuinely care for us. We learn to trust them. We hear their voice. And again, it's not their voice, it's the fact that they care for us, don't they? And we've learned to trust in them. And I was thinking about Red Riding Hood. Do you remember that? Oh, Grandma, what big eyes you've got. Oh, Grandma, what big teeth you've got. And I'm stood there thinking, did she not know her grandma's voice? And why did she get that close? It's interesting, isn't it? And we all know wolves can't speak, and I get that, you know, but just imagine it's all good. Hello, little Red Riding Hood. You know, it's kind of like, there's something that's not right here, and that's the whole point of the story, is what big eyes you've got. There's something not right here. It doesn't seem right. And it's interesting, Jesus talks about those who come to kill and steal and destroy. Of course, the wolf just wants to eat her, doesn't he? He just wants to cause destruction. And yet she gets close before she's rescued by whoever it was, I can't remember. And then you get Harriet the dog. And we were sat in our garden one day where we used to live, and we put this big sunshade thing up. It was in a bit heat wavy. And all of a sudden, I noticed that Harriet's head had appeared next to my piece of cake. Because she's good at that. And those of you who've not met Harriet, we got a unit that's about this high. She can get stuff off the top of it. So you have to be very careful with Harriet. But Harriet, she's Tracy's dog really. You know, I do love her dearly, you know that. But I would give her away tomorrow. So I'm not an animal person. I do love her dearly. I would never see her suffer. We were talking about this the other day. I'm always the first to say, let's take it to the vet. I would never want her to suffer. But I'm very happy for anyone else to have her, and I'm open to offers. But the thing is, when Tracy was away in New Zealand a few weeks ago, over a day or two, she realised Tracy wasn't there, and so she had to get on with me. But if Tracy's there she has to walk next to Tracy. Because Tracy feeds her most days. It's not that Tracy's better than I am, although that probably is true. But it's Tracy feeds her most days. She walks her most days. And in fact, when some of our children try and walk her, she'll pull and want to go home to find Tracy. Because she's Tracy's dog. She recognised Tracy's voice. She wants to. It's not about hearing when Jesus says to hear. It's about relationship. It's about knowing. And then the jolly old scam. Have you ever had an email about a Nigerian prince? Have you ever had a WhatsApp from someone saying, I've lost my phone and it's broken. Can you use this number instead? Or something from your bank or your mobile phone provider that's saying, guess what, we're paying your bills for the next 5 years. All you need to do is click on this link. We've all had that kind of stuff, haven't we? And we need to learn what it is in society to recognise those things for what they are without losing everyday trust in people. And I share that with you because that's something I really struggle with, because I realise I'm much more distrusting than I was 10 years ago. And that's what this stuff has done to us, and we've got to try and work out how we do that. So how do we do that? We look at this thing thinking, is that what this person would say? Would they have run off with a Nigerian prince? Are they abroad at all? And if I don't know they're abroad, why don't I ring them up and find out? If I think my bank wants to pay my bills for the next 10 years, why don't I ring them up to check that's legitimate? Do you see what I mean? So we're verifying the voice, aren't we? We're finding out about that sort of thing. So there are all sorts of voices, and Jesus said, well, look, you have a choice. Jesus said, I've come that they may have life and have it to the full. But he also talks about the other voice, the voice that's full of destruction, that's full of danger, the words of harm that we can see upon the screen there. And words are like weapons, aren't they? What voice are you hearing in your head? I don't mean that in a kind of I'm going doolally kind of way. I mean that in kind of we all have voices, don't we? So I remember one of my churches, I, as you know, I preach in a certain style. I preach in a way that if someone didn't know anything about church, I'd want them to come in and understand. But not every Christian likes that. And in one of my churches, a group got together and started to spread rumours about me and tell stuff that wasn't true. And basically, they wanted me to preach proper preaching that used religious words like... I can't think of one. And there we go. And, and actually, I do have a degree in theology and I can do that stuff. I just choose not to. And they didn't like it. And one of the things that happened towards the end of my ministry there, it was just miserable, was several people said to me repeatedly, you should not be in ministry at all. It wasn't we don't like your preaching, or we would rather we had a different ministry. It was, you have no place in ministry. And this was said publicly in meetings as well. And so when I arrived at my next church, I was on the first Sunday I'm preaching, and what is the voice I can hear in my head? Which one is it? Is it God saying, I've set you free, begin again? Or is it, you have no place in ministry at all? And this lady came up to me in the end and she said to me, and she was not a spring chicken, can I just say, and you'll see why that's important. She said, that's the first sermon I ever understood all the way through. Thank you for that. But the voice in my head was still saying, but you have no place doing this sort of thing. Because that negativity takes time to shift. And some of you, when we paused earlier, what is God saying to you? Some of you, I would imagine, I'm not looking at anyone now because I don't know you well enough yet, some of you in that moment only heard negativity. And if you did, I'm really sorry, and I don't know what you've been through, but I've been, as I've just said, I've been where you are, and I know what that's like to only hear that negative voice. And if that's you, whether it's with me or someone else, I hope you'll come and we can talk about it and pray about it, and realising that's a journey. That's not something that goes away quickly. That's something we have to work through over time. So if you did only hear negativity, it's not just you. You're not the only one. We all go through that stuff at times, and we can help each other out of it. And that's one of the reasons why we meet and we gather together. But what are we going to choose? What are we going to hear? Are we going to choose Jesus said, I've come that they might have life. Do we choose life or do we choose destruction? And that sounds like a stupid question, doesn't it? because it's obvious which you choose. But the second question is, which voice are we hearing? So, in the game we did earlier, one of the things that I do, which is a little bit manipulative, when I have two children and one saying the right way, one saying the wrong way, you always pick the child that's going to be louder to tell them to go the wrong way. Because it prolongs the game. Because if there's someone, the loud one tells them to go the right way, it doesn't work. And I was thinking about that when we were being quiet earlier on, oddly enough, and I was thinking, this is very like that, isn't it? Where we know we should listen to Jesus. We know he has the words of life. But those negative voices are so loud at times, aren't they? And whether it's the things that people have said to us, it might be family members, it might be your boss, it could be all sorts of people. Whether it's that kind of stuff, or whether it's stuff that we see on social media. And, have you ever been on Facebook? And everyone looks so perfect, and here's my life happy. And someone, it's funny, that's my Facebook banner picture I put up there. And it's of us in the rain, dripping wet. We could have had a picture later, but it was sunny. And then we looked a bit more presentable. But that was the moment of happiness. That was reality, not fake. What voice are we hearing? And often we look at people's lives online and we think, oh, they're so perfect, or they're so slim, or look at that model, he's so airbrushed. And I'm sure you find that when I'm preaching as well, looking at me, thinking, how does he stay so slim? With Tracy's cooking, just how does he do it? I understand that. What voices are we hearing? What impression are we being given? And the way society works and the way advertising works, it's designed, advertising, to make you feel like you're not enough. That's the whole premise. Because if you realise you're not enough, then you'll need to buy this thing. And so we live with constant negativity. And how do we learn to prioritise Jesus? How do we turn to him? How do we listen to his voice of life and truth? How can we make that a priority? And that's one of the reasons we gather together. We've been talking about the importance of gathering. And we know that in the world that we live in, some of us work Sundays, other things happen, we can't always be here. So the question is, how do we prioritise gathering somehow on a regular basis? How do we connect with other Christians that we point one another to Jesus? Jesus has said in verse 9, I'm the gate. If you come through me, you'll be saved, or you will find safety. You'll find that fullness of life. But of course there's a choice, isn't there? Will we step in? Will we step through? And actually, it's funny, one of the things we do is we take verses out of context in the Bible. So we said, Jesus said we'd have fullness of life. Brilliant. I've got it. And actually, when you read the passage, that's not what it says, is it? Because there were verses like this one, I'm the gate. You have to choose. My sheep know my voice. They will follow me. Fullness of life isn't automatic, that sense of yay, life in Jesus. And incidentally, life in Jesus can be when you're miserable. It can be when you're at the end of your tether, when you don't know you're giving it. The fullness of life is just that you're alive at all. I know it sounds a bit odd, but it's true, following Jesus. But we only find it by following, by sticking close, by obeying, by saying, you are the gate. I will trust in you. And to realise that he, the Good Shepherd, laid down his life for us. He gave his life so that we might know him now and forever. The sin that we've all had, that's part of all of our lives, separates us from a holy and perfect God. And yet Jesus died to take the sin of the world on himself, that we could be free to know God. So much does he want to know us that he gave his life. And it's not because he's desperate for a bit of company. Because God is Trinity, he's three in one. God is never alone. He's community and a person. He doesn't need us. He doesn't. There's nothing. We're a nuisance in a lot of ways. But yet he gave his life that he might know us now and forever. So just 3 things I'd like to say about being part of the flock. The first one is the sheep pen. So there are times when the sheep are gathered in their pen, and they're safe and they're sound, they're fed, they're encouraged, it's all good, and they're gathered together in one place. They're reminded that they are the flock united in one place. It's very similar to our gathering here. or our gathering when we meet at a house for a meal with other people in the church, or when we go to a house group, or we might go for a walk with someone in the church. When we gather together, we have chance to think about the shepherd together. And then sometimes we're blessed and built up by God, and that can be in the gathering or in our everyday life. We think about the water of life that we had, the feeding and being built up spiritually. We think about rest and not exhaustion. And one of the things that makes me sad as I visit churches is many churches are built on a model of exhaustion. We're going to be really busy. And actually, Jesus... make sure I don't stand on him. Actually, Jesus, and that's fine, it's not a problem. Actually, unless he's counting the offering, that could be a problem, but no, it's all right. Actually, Jesus gives us life, doesn't he? And he gives us rest, and he wants us to rest. We should not be exhausted serving God on a regular basis, because if we are, we're not doing his will. Sometimes we have to push above and beyond. But it shouldn't be a regular way of life, because he makes us lie down in green pastures. How are we finding that spiritual refreshment and revitalisation? How are we finding that rest? And then we think about the flock out there in the everyday world. And there's a friend of mine who went on sabbatical. And that's something a Baptist minister gets every 7 years. They get 3 months to go and rest and refresh. I'm 5 years away, incidentally. I can give you the date if anyone wants it. 5 years off. And a friend of mine went to the Lake District, and he was up walking in the hills. And God spoke to him, because as he was in the hills, he saw all these sheep dotted around. And he thought to himself, well, where are the fences? What's going on? Who's looking after them? And the sheep just roam freely across a huge area. And then once a year or at certain times, they're then gathered in. And God really spoke to him about church and how his church, and most churches in the UK, are built upon a come-to-us basis. Come to us, come to the sheep pen, and we'll tell you all about Jesus. And God spoke to him and said, what about the sheep up the mountain? What about the sheep who aren't coming in? How are we engaging with people? How will we stay close to the shepherd when we gather and in everyday life, in the dark times, in the struggle, as we follow him? And remembering that when we stray for him, Jesus told the parable of the lost sheep. He went to find the lost sheep. And even when we stray from him, he doesn't give up on us. And that reminder, as I was just saying, Jesus said, I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. There are people who aren't here yet, who I want to know me. And we need to think about how we share good news about Jesus. And the thing I'd like to say about that is I think we're called to share life and not fear. We're called to share life and not fear. And one of the things that constantly surprises me is how some people still are trying to frighten people into following Jesus. Where are you going to spend eternity? Are you going to heaven or hell? I'm frightening you to follow Jesus. So here's a bit of homework for you. Did Jesus ever speak about hell to anyone who wasn't religious? Okay, homework for you. Okay, come and let me know. How did Jesus speak to people who don't know him? Nicodemus must be born again. Woman by the well, who everyone hated. You can have living water. Did you see? God speaks positively. Jesus said, I come to bring them life. And following Jesus and life in all its fullness is not in heaven only. It's here. And incidentally, I do believe heaven and hell are real. That's not the point. But the point is, it's life in following Jesus that our world needs. And that we actually don't live in a society that thinks about life after death. And so I think it's actually quite a destructive thing to do as well. But I want us to speak life. I'll answer any questions about hell. I'll speak about the afterlife. That's not the way we're going to win people over. Oh, but did that too early. So there we go. So let's share life with people. Yeah, no, I didn't do it too early. Wanted to finish with the lyrics of this song, and then we're going to watch a short video. The song is The Voice of Truth by Casting Crowns, and we'll listen to it in just a moment. Oh, what I would do to have the kind of faith it takes to climb out of this boat onto the crashing waves, to step out of my comfort zone into the realm of the unknown, where Jesus is and he's holding out his hands. And it's one thing to hear the voice of Jesus in a church and say, I think Jesus is saying he loves us. It'd be another thing to be on a boat and Jesus saying, do you want to come for a walk with me across the water? That's like, whoa, hang on a minute. And there's a whole thing of comfort zone. And will we hear his voice, even in the difficult times? And the waves are calling out my name and they laugh at me. And the song goes on to speak about David and Goliath. And it's very similar, to have the faith to stand before the giant. But he's laughing at me. And there are those voices, aren't they? The voice of life where Jesus is saying, come to me and I'll bring you fullness of life. But we hear those voices laughing at us. So we're going to watch this video. The clips in the video are from the Bible series. And so this won't be on our video that goes online later because we don't have the license to share it. So we're going to watch a little bit of Jesus getting ready, Jesus' disciples getting ready to cross the lake, and then we'll hear the music. Jesus, thank you that you are the good shepherd. Thank you, you never leave us, you never forsake us. And thank you, you want to give us life in all its fullness. You want to lead us. Help us to follow you, stay close to you, and to listen to your voice. Amen.